Well, it's my pleasure to sit with my old friend. We really aren't friends, but it's funny, you know. It's like when you go back and you find people who are on television and you watch them, you know them, and you feel like when you see them, well, we've just known each other all our lives.
But it's more than that, Chuck, because we're kind of like the survivors on the Titanic. You know, we're still here, and you share those old memories.
Yeah.
You know, I started in black and white.
I saw you in black and white. But anyway, we've all grown up now. Now, you've had a fascinating career. I think it's just been very interesting. ABC for a long, long time. Now you were a regular on Fox, and now you're like contributing to. What exactly? Where are you there?
Well, I was. My career tracked all the networks. Really, 15 years at ABC,
Right.
and then I had the daytime talk show that was mostly CBS.
Right.
Then NBC. I had Rivera Live during the Clinton impeachment, the Simpson, the Bronco chase, all that era.
Right.
And for the last 12 years, I've been senior war correspondent for Fox News.
That's what it is. Okay.
And then as the Iraq
that doesn't
ended,
just trip off your tongue. Senior war correspondent.
Iraq ended. I was on the last convoy out. Now, hopefully, Afghanistan is ending after 11 trips to both those hellholes.
Yeah.
And now I started a radio program last January that just went national a couple weeks ago.
Congratulations.
You know, so with 5 kids, including a 7-year-old, you got to keep working.
That's right. I know the feeling. I have 2 going to college now. So I want to ask you a question. These are going to come from my curiosity because I don't know the answer. And I'm curious. Now, you've grown up. You're, 69 now?
69.
I'm 71, so we're pretty close. We're not too far apart. Have your attitudes changed politically since you've gotten older, or is it the Winston Churchill thing where he said, when you're young and you're not a liberal, you have no heart, and when you're old and you're not a conservative, you have no mind? I mean, is it true, or have you kept the same kind of value system that you've always had?
I think that's a great question, but I think my answer might be a little different than most. Remember, my reputation and my background, I was a long-haired radical lawyer in the 60s, very, very progressive.
Graduated from University of Arizona, right?
University of Arizona, bear down, but my activism came when I left Arizona in 65. I came to New York after I went back to LA, and then I went to New York. So I was in New York for the 67, 68, 69.
All the good times.
The civil rights movement,
Yeah.
incredible. I was arrested demonstrating the anti-war movement, all those kinds of things. So that's where I come from. And over time, I guess I went through some of the track that you described. I came to realize I didn't know nearly as much as I thought I knew. But there's something else that happened very importantly. 9/11 happened. So here, that's 2001. And I wanted to go to war. I wanted to, 6 of the dads in my kids' grade school died. They were Cantor Fitzgerald people, financial people in the towers. They died. And so I wanted to go to war. My little town, I lived at that time in Middletown, New Jersey. It was the highest per capita casualties. We had over 100 parents, mostly dads, killed that day. So I wanted to go to war. NBC wouldn't let me go to war. I went to my old friend Roger Ailes, who you know, and I said, Roger, give me a job as a war correspondent. He did. But the main point of the story is not only did I spend so much time with the military in the last 11 plus years, but spending time at Fox News, where the general bent, and there's no secret, is conservative.
No, it is.
But
to try to deny that would be foolish.
Yeah, it is foolish. But what happened is I saw the people who were voicing these opinions about the sentiments about anti-abortion, the sentiments opposing gay marriage, their sentiments opposing illegal immigration. And I started to say, these are all positions where I'm 180 degrees from most of them, but they were not crazy people. They're not evil people. They're not stupid people. They're sincere people who hold these beliefs just as firmly or sincerely as I do. So I became, in a way, ironically, more open-minded now. That's what I am more than I've ever been. Willing to give the anti-abortion crusader, the time of day. I don't feel that I'm superior or inferior, but I think that they've got a point to make, and that's why I appreciate their sincerity.
So you respect their point of view.
Exactly.
Not necessarily their point.
Well said.
Okay, so moving on to go just a little bit deeper, let's talk about something specific, and that is policy, and everybody calls it Obamacare or the Affordable Act, whatever you want to call it. Do you think that that's a good thing for the country, or what are your personal feelings about that as you get older? I mean, we're both. I'm on Social Security, but I don't. It's not something that I need or take, and I'm sure you're the same way. But here we are in our 60s and 70s, looking at all the things the other people have, and Medicare. And I hated it when I had to go off my SAG and AFTRA and
Me
go
too.
on Medicare. I just hated it.
Happened to me too.
Yeah. Did you just hate it?
But don't you have that pension from SAG? We've been around so long.
Yeah, but still,
it's a good. It's not even my tip money.
I know.
Not forget about the tuitions that we pay.
So anyway, when you get to Obamacare and you look at this, is this better for the overall good, or is this just more government control, or what is it, in your opinion?
Being around John Stossel at Fox, I really think government can't do anything right. I really believe that, and I think the way.
Do you like John Stossel?
I do. I do.
like him.
We started around the same time.
I don't know him at all, but I really like him.
He's a couple of years younger, not many.
Yeah.
He kind of come from the same generation, and I like his libertarian approach, and I think he's dead right about government can't do things right. But when you saw that Barack Obama, when he came into office, first of all, I feel so deeply about the 12 million undocumented immigrants here, and he promised in the first 100 days to fix that. He was going to have a comprehensive immigration reform. He could have done so much. He had that cachet. He had both houses of Congress. There were other things he could have done rather than picking the fight over Obamacare. Now, it's not that I don't believe that every American should have health care. I do. But I think that I would have preferred a single-payer system. I know that that may make the hair on the back of your head, neck stand up, but I really checked it. I really would have preferred that to this bastardized program that he conjured up, ultimately compromising, putting the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies in charge. I just think this is a recipe to drain the budget even more. It's not going to result in a higher quality of care. I think that he spent all of his political capital as a result, and I think that the most intriguing character out there today is Paul Ryan.
He is, isn't he?
He's the only one.
He's like a great CFO.
Right, and he's the only one with the guts, like a great CFO, to say this is what has to be done.
Right.
But here's my fear, Chuck. It seems to me that he's already backed away from the most dramatic and I think what would have been the most effective aspects. I think Medicare cannot continue to exist as it currently is.
So you think
drafted.
that even trying to adjust the way he's trying to adjust it, it still wouldn't work, even though people under 55 are the only ones affected. Everybody over 55 aren't affected.
And who knows what's going to happen when the 55-year-olds or 65
Well, it's not going to get
old.
any better, is it?
What I would have liked, and I think that Paul Ryan's one of his most basic early suggestions was, why didn't they raise the retirement age from 65 to 67? Why didn't they propose that right away? And you could start that at the people who are 55 years old.
Well, but I mean, when all these things were conceived, no one was living this long. We weren't as healthy as we are. We're talking about health care and everything else. Hell, we're outliving everything.
But my point is, it's easy
True.
It's easy. We are, and we will, and we're going to bankrupt the country because my mom, God bless her, is 92 years old. Why want I want to live at least long enough to see my 7-year-old get out of high school.
Sure. I always said my 16-year-old, I said, I want to be able to dance with your bride.
Yeah.
That's at least give me that.
So I think that we have to really come to grips with the fact that everybody who's elected to office wants to cut your taxes and increase your entitlements, and that's a surefire way to bankrupt the country. You have to have the courage to say, all right, if the government is swollen, we've got to cut government, and you've got to take some of the bitter medicine.
So would you say, from your perspective, and historically and where you've arrived at now, that you're more of a big government person, or are you less of a big government person?
Well, that's an excellent question. It's hard to define, although I go back to the Stosselism.
Government either rules or it doesn't.
And I appreciate that as well.
And I think it does now.
The United States has always been a mix of socialism and capitalism. We've always been, and it's where you move the needle.
The 1890s.
Since the 1890s. Where you move the needle is critical and defining, and you don't have to move it very much to be considered either a socialist or a capitalist. Barack Obama's experiencing that right now. So
do you think it's wrong to refer to him that way if he does socialist things? I mean, I heard O'Reilly and Laura. Well, I heard O'Reilly and Laura Ingraham. I'm watching them, and someone had just come on. I'm not sure who it was. It wasn't you, but it was someone that just preceded them, and they said, well, Barack Obama is doing, it may have been Dick Morris. He said, Barack Obama is doing socialist policies, blah, 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 blah. And he said, well, and so Bill said, well, do you think he's a socialist? He said, yes, he is a socialist. Then they came on and Bill said to Laura Ingraham, who I like, and she said, well, I think it's wrong to label people. And Bill said, yeah, I think it's wrong too. I said, what?
No, those
All
two.
we do is label people. I mean, Democrat, Republican.
I'm surprised Laura Ingraham didn't call him a commie.
But I mean, honest to God, it's all. There's no way to define people unless you label them some way.
There is no doubt that you have your finger on what is the defining issue of the moment, this election.
Right.
Put aside the race thing for a second.
Well, that's see, I never thought race was a part of this. It's because I mean, why would I like Walter Williams? I love Walter Williams, but I like Walter Williams' policies. It's not about the color of his skin.
And yet everybody in this building is white. You know, that's a real thing.
Everybody in this building is white.
All the Republican convention's all white people, and the Democratic convention's going to be mostly people of color.
Yeah, but that's because you and I both know the history on that. That goes back to Kennedy and Nixon. And
put
so
race aside, put
that.
immigration aside, put abortion aside, put all these gay marriage, put all these social issues aside. I think you're absolutely right. Going back to the point that it is a nuanced rather than profound distinction, as George W. Bush showed, very socialist in some of his spending,
absolutely,
and leading to the deficit. I think that the decision, though, will still hinge on whether or not you believe government should be the prime architect of a solution to an economic problem, or free enterprise should be the architect of the solution. And that's how I think most people ultimately will vote.
Let me share something with you that I ran across a couple of weeks ago, and I was surprised because when I ran across it, for some reason it just never resonated that he said this. And George Washington said, and stop me if you've heard it. Well, don't stop me because I want to share it. He said he was describing what government is and what it isn't, and he did it in such a short and profound and deep way. He said government is not reason. It's not eloquent. It's force. It's like fire. It's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Honest to God. I mean, how more profound can you get in wrapping up what government has the potential to be and what it really isn't?
Well, my biggest beef, and the founding father of our country hit it spot on, go to D.C. and see how, as every other community suffered, as foreclosures swept the land, as unemployment climbed in some communities deep into double digits. Even in L.A., it was into double digits for a while. You go to D.C., everybody's working. Everybody's got a great house. Every big building there is getting bigger. And I think that therein lies a deep peril.
Absolutely. It's what happened. It's the old Margaret Thatcher line. I mean, it's so hackneyed now, but it's still, it's great. Socialism works great, and government's great till you run out of other people's money because we fund it. They don't make money. They don't make jobs. They don't do it. All they do is spend stuff.
But again, the big point is it's so easy to be brave about cuts. And so, cutting taxes, and it's so hard to be brave about cutting entitlements. And there's plenty of entitlements out there on both sides of the aisle that really need addressing.
Mike Huckabee said something that I never forgot.
I love Mike Huckabee.
I'd never thought about it. And he said in a passing way, he said, it's a lot easier to criticize than it is to govern. And from someone who's governed, I'm sure he knows that. And it is easy to criticize, and yet at the same time, it seems like the problems that you and I see, no matter if you're on the left side and I'm on the right side, or you're in the middle and I'm on the right side, whatever it is, those problems never go away. They're never going to solve themselves. There are solutions to these problems.
Yeah, bankruptcy court.
Well, maybe that's it. But God, do we have to go off a cliff to put a stoplight at the intersection?
Interesting you mentioned the cliff. I think this fiscal cliff they're all worried about, the tax-mageddon that's going to happen at the end of the year, I'd rather that happened than nothing happened, because all they'll do,
they'll just kick it down.
They'll just kick it down, kick it down, and my 7-year-old will be 37 years old, and there'll be a real crisis.
It's like the Democrats say, okay, if we do this, it'll last just this long, and maybe we can catch them while they're in office. And the Republicans are saying,
like
maybe we can catch them when they're in office. It's like this strategy of chess playing with our money and our debits.
It's kind of depressing.
It is.
I need a drink, Chuck.
It's very funny. You should say that. Let's go get one.
Okay.
Thank you, Geraldo.
Thank you,
Thanks so much
Chuck.
for spending time
My
with me. I had a
pleasure,
great
man.
time.
Great
Thanks.
time. Thanks.
Okay.